So, a presentation in German. It's going to be a little bit difficult for me, but I will try to do my best. And if it really doesn't work, then I'll just swap over to French. Does that work? Then someone will be able to come and translate for me. So, ladies and gentlemen, today I really want to tell you guys the story of George. So, it was in the 1950s. George was 43 at the time, and he loved going on walks with his dog called Milka. He is a hunter. He loves being outside in nature. When George got back, he had to ask himself a couple of questions. He was fascinated by this picture. Every time he gets back, there are burdock fruits that you can see in this image that are stuck on his own clothes and also on the fur of his dog. Then he understands what it is that helps this plant to hold on so well. On their end, they have little elastic hooks, and they use that to hold on to either material or also the fur of his dog, for example. He then looked at these burdock fruits under his microscope. And he saw that these elastic hooks would not break off even if ripped from the material they were stuck to. And this is how the idea of Velcro fasteners came. Velcro comes from the French word, crochet meaning stuck and velours meaning velvet. The patent was made 1955. And today it is a very well-known thing. At the beginning it was for clothing. But today we know that it is used in many different areas, in medicine, in military. And I'm sure that a whole generation of children are really excited about this invention. They never had to tie their shoes. That's amazing, isn't it? To observe nature and then to derive ideas from that, many people have done that. Leonardo da Vinci, he was one of the pioneers in this area. He spent a lot of time investigating nature. And he wanted to create machines through investigating nature that would make life easier for men and would increase creativity. And since he also really wanted to fly, he wrote about flying machines. He wasn't successful. One time when he was in the north of Florence, his poor assistant ended up breaking his leg. The attempt at flying was not that good. But Leonardo da Vinci said, "Take private hours from nature. It is our future." Today, the observation of nature, even the returning to nature, is very relevant right now. Looking at nature helps us to invent new technologies. It gives us inspiration for new innovation. it has now turned into a new discipline to look at nature. A new science that connects different disciplines. And we call it biomimicry. The attempt is to look into nature, to observe, and then also to imitate. This way, they want to invent new technologies and make life easier. There are many different websites that introduce this idea. There are organizations that are global, and they research into nature, trying to figure out how different processes work to then also imitate it and use it themselves. So tonight I want to talk about some of these different researches, how problems could be solved by getting the knowledge from nature. We're not going to go deep into the technological aspects of it. We're just going to look at a couple of different examples. So we can look into aerodynamic as the first example. About 20 years ago, when they were looking into making the bionic car with Mercedes, they looked into the penguin. Why did they do that? Because a penguin has really great streamlined shape. He barely loses speed underwater. So they thought that is the solution to make a dynamic car. In physics, there's a value for aerodynamics. We call it the C value. A penguin has a C value of 0.07, and it's always, if it's lower, it's better. Next to the penguin, they also looked into different animals. For example, the house martin. And then lastly, the engineers also looked at the trunkfish. Wow. Why? This doesn't really seem to make sense at a first thought. Aerodynamically, it doesn't look like it would suit. But if you look at it more closely, and then you see the prototype that the engineers of Mercedes made, you have to recognize that the C value that these trunkfishes have is very low. So they compromised between the volume inside and then the highest speed. Okay, so this was basically a prototype and it was very efficient. Another example of aerodynamics came from Japan. When they made their train, the different engineers looked at had many troubles. The problem with these high-speed trains was that there was a very big amount of tunnels. And every time the train went through a tunnel, the change in pressure would make a loud noise that was not safe for the people in the train and the people around the train. But that wasn't the only problem. The train engineer had other problems as well. There was problems with noise reduction, air resistance, and energy saving. There was a whole bunch of difficulties. So this engineer to fix these problems looked at birds. And he was looking for a bird that might be able to solve the problem he had as it came to air resistance and that same speed. So a bird that could come from a very low air pressured situation into a high air pressured situation. And he looked and he found the kingfisher. The very long beak in the front was the solution. The beak did not only serve to catch fish, but the form of the beak also helps the bird to enter into the water without any issues. And if you do go to Japan, you can see that the beak of the train is actually formed in a very long fashion. So it is actually simulating the kingfisher bird. The results are even better. Noise reduction, yes, but there's also a smaller air resistance, and they also save energy, 13%. So good job. It has been said that I am French, but in Switzerland, I know that you can't get around speaking about cleanliness. So that's what we're going to do now. And I want to talk about the secret of the lotus leaf. And it is able to stay clean at all times. We call this the lotus effect. So the lotus leaf does not like water at all. There are also people who don't like water. We call the lotus leaf extremely hydrophobe. You can see it in the picture as well. The water rolls off the leaf. This happens because of a very unique making of the leaf. It actually has a self-cleaning aspect to it. The water drop stays round on the surface of the leaf because it's extremely hydrophobe. And I don't want to give any advertisement in particular, but I still want to show this short video just to show you how exactly it looks and what it does. You can see the water drops, they're just rolling right off. And this is the structure of the plant that is actually copied here in this video. And you can see with the structure, the dirt particles are being taken off with the water. So it's a self-cleaning system. And that is now used for color that is put on walls so that they're also self-cleaning. So that was that quick advertisement. So here we now have the secret of the lotus leaf. It stays clean and has a self-cleaning property that we use in our day-to-day life too now. So, a next example for nature that we've tried to copy is about the adhesive strength. So the main word here is adhesive strength. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a look at tires, biometric tires. So the idea of this actually came from frogs. As you can see on picture A, B, C, and D, they studied the skin of the frogs and they realized that it's really not absolutely flat. It's not homogeneous. They're actually small little rits. Well, you understood me anyway, right? So Continental copied this. They made a Winter Contact TS780 so that it would have a better effect on a wet surface. So very simply, when they copied these frogs and the different features of their legs and feet, they made way more efficient tires. When we're talking about adhesive strength, we should definitely also speak about geckos. Geckos are, yeah, they're tropical and they are the best examples for this. They don't seem to follow the laws of gravity. They go up walls without any resistance at all. And they have legs that have adhesive strength that is unbelievable. You can see that um, every leg of this animal has at least 100,000 very, very small hairs. You can't even imagine it. But if you look at it a little bit closer, here we're focusing on the foot. You can see it's not actually sticky or anything. It's not like sellotape or anything. So the reason why it's not sticky is because it should only be sticking to things when they want it to stick, so that they can also let go as soon as they want to. So they don't have any time to have glue or anything there. It wouldn't be efficient. So now if you look at the structure of the gecko feet, you could say that it is very impressive. Without problem, they can walk on ceilings. And it's because of all the many tiny little elastic hairs that you can barely see. I'm going to take the laser pointer and point at those little hairs here. These tiny little elastic hairs that are on their feet. The tip of the hair is actually split. And because of van der Waals powers, this animal can then stick to the ceiling. It's not something that I can understand as a biologist, but the adhesive strength that is created through this is unbelievable. And it's because of the atomic process. This is a solution that lets the gecko stick and then also let go extremely quickly. I mean, the whole all of the strength is in the number. One hair on its own could not keep the gecko stuck to the ceiling, but because there's so many of them, he can stick. Now, if we counted all the hairs of all 4 feet of the gecko, a gecko could carry 127 kilos. In the laboratory, they do different experiments. They take little backpacks. There's some people up here who aren't sleeping. Backpacks. They take them and they put them on the gecko to see how much weight that they can carry. If we could imitate this, we could definitely think about specific situations where this is done. Well, there is a super glue. And if you have a surface area of contact that is only 0.5 centimeters squared, it could carry up to 100 grams. It is also used to keep pictures attached to the wall. My wife would be so excited if we had this. What a dream. This inspired other people. For example, the movie Mission Impossible. This was made in a skyscraper in Dubai. So the gloves that he has on are actually copied by the gecko. And if we could really do this, then yeah, that might be realistic. So this afternoon, we already heard about spiders. Very interesting. And so I don't want to talk about spiders the whole time, but spiders, they're a great example for resistance, elasticity, and strength. And if you look at this side of the spider web, there is a combination of strength, lightness, it's not heavy, gentleness, sustainability. It's something that's really special. So for example, if we could make a spider web, we could put a jumbo jet, 380 tons, we could put that in there. When it comes to lightness, if we had a spider web that went around the entire globe, so 40,000 kilometers, it would only weigh 320 grams. And this all is anti-allergenic. It's very breathable. And it's also really great at managing water. It's biodegradable. It's vegan. And it's 100% able to disintegrate again biologically. So now people are trying to imitate it. They're trying to make sneakers out of a material that is similar. They want to make it out of natural spider web, but also silk. There are so many different uses that that a spider web could fulfill. It could be for used as the string for catching fish. Also, the great thing is you wouldn't be in need of any big, huge um, factories or anything because everything can be done at room temperature. So now we've just talked about spiders and spider webs. Some people wanted to use it in glass as well as fiber, but there are also many other examples that might suit better. Instead of glass fibers, instead of using a spider web for glass fiber, we could use something else. So different materials that we need can actually be taken from different. For example, here's an animal that lives very deep down in the ocean and it produces something that could be used for glass instead. So they saw that the secretion of this animal this secretion that is made is very unique. You can see how it's netted into each other. These are glass fibers. And these glass fibers are way better than what we know and what we have. They're better at telecommunication. They're way more efficient. And at low temperatures, they're created at low temperatures. They contain something that's not possible to have in glass. They have sodium ions. This can increase the optical features of it. And this can only be at low temperatures. There are also other features that you can see in the different layers as well. It is very resistant and very elastic as well of this glass. So if you take a glass fiber, you can just break it, right? But these glass fibers are not easily broken in that same way. Not like the ones that are usually produced. So there are actually way more examples. There are 1,000 other examples. Things that are just around us is very simple. All you have to do is observe. And the crazy thing about it is, nature produces under soft circumstance. It doesn't need a lot of energy, and it doesn't harm our world either. Isn't that amazing? That's why these days, nature inspires us to live in a way that is more environmentally friendly. Many people have to say, what we can observe in nature around us is just amazing. The nanostructures just amaze us in their beauty and also in the intelligence. There's a book here that's in French. This is what the scientists are saying. According to this principle of biomimicry, scientists are just amazed when they study nature, such as butterflies, or when they look at the gecko and see how it has that adhesive strength and can just stick to a wall. It's something unique. Another example, so we spoke about penguins before. If the penguin would be a vehicle with 1 liter of diesel, it could go 1,500 kilometers. That is amazing, isn't it? Now a quiz to wake you guys up before we finish up this evening. Here we have 2 numbers, and they are speaking of another wonder of nature. Do you know what it is? It's really easy. On the 3rd of January 2023, this was written down in the Guinness World Record. 13,560 and 265. 13,560 kilometers, 265 hours. It was a record. For the farthest migration of a bird. The flight took 265 hours. And it was the bar-tailed godwit. To count this, we would have had to have a little biochip on the bird. The chip was 234464. That's not really relevant for us, but I just told you. This bird flew all the way from Alaska to the Australian state of Tasmania. It never took a break to rest or to eat, without a break, without eating. Just flew through all the way. Alaska to Tasmania, without stopping. That makes everyone who's involved in aviation just surprised. Imagine if we managed to do this one day with an airplane. Is it even possible to make airplanes that could do this? Everywhere we look, we find elegance and ingenuity of absolute transcendent quality. That's what many say today. People who observe nature. Why? Well, easy. Because nature is made well, right? And yeah, we have to admit it. Everything was made really well. And if you look into this and you study it, there are different reactions that you could have. Some people say, coincidence did a great job. Nature is perfect. Or is it actually the result of intelligence? Or are there traces of an extraordinary architect? There's different reactions to looking at the same data. And this is just the different ways of looking at the world that exist. When we look into this, what we see is the question, if biological systems that we keep getting to know better were created alone or just came to be alone, or if they were created by someone. And so there are different answers. Some say no. They say the first cell just came to be, and all of us came from that cell. It doesn't matter if we're plants, animals, or people. It's just a fact. All creatures are related, and scientists accept it. It would be ridiculous to not believe that. Richard Dawkins continues on. He says evolution theory is so doubtful as the fact that the Earth circles around the sun. So, in other words, you definitely don't even need to waste the time to think about it. He says, these people actually also focus on biomimicry. Biomimicry 3.8 is an organization that says 3.8 billion years has created the beauty that we now have. And this system, it was created over that amount of time, and now we are the result of all that time. So it's in line with something that Richard Dawkins said. You can reduce Darwin's big idea to a single sentence. Give enough time, the non-random survival of hereditary traits which occasionally miscopy, will produce complexity, diversity, beauty, and an illusion of design so convincing that it is almost impossible to distinguish it from intentional, intelligent design. So some people, when they look at this, people would say it's design. There's clearly an architect, but no. They say that no, we know that it only seems as though there's a designer. Darwin brought the answer that it seemed that there would be a designer, but his theory ended up concluding that though it seems as though there would be a designer, there is no designer. There I'm just left astounded. But I guess why not? So there are also experiments that we could do, or we could also just speculate. We could speculate how to create a helicopter. And I think in France we're a bit further with this than in Switzerland. I'll show you something. This is a premiere. How you could create a helicopter. Okay, it's coming now. Who of you is ready to get into a helicopter like this one? A helicopter is quite complicated, isn't it? Nature is way more complicated than a helicopter. And to believe that a helicopter could be created like this, nobody would ever believe it. But to then claim this about nature, suddenly some people would say, yeah, it came to be through itself. The technical analysis of some spectacular bioprograms make one think that the system of life did not just appear and exist in this amazing biodiversity without a fixed program. There must be a program. There must be something behind it. But why is it this way? Here again, this professor, he was a professor of anatomy, and he says, given a function, organ, cell structure, or dynamic variation, when intentionality, complexity, technical success, and reproducibility coexist, chance must be eliminated. Intentionality is the expression of a purposeful will. That means an action with a clearly recognizable and expressible goal. It is, in a sense, the translation of a set of duties. Even here, you see, there are a set of duties in nature. But who made this set of duties? Birds are made optimally to fly. And so many animals, plants, are made optimally to be able to do a specific function. In absence of an absurd and very unlikely accident, I mean, who of you guys believe that in France we build helicopters that way? Nobody. Or maybe a lot of you, and you think, oh, we know that the French are a little bit. Okay. So, in absence of an absurd and unlikely accident, the observations of modern scientists seem to be pointing towards a supernatural plan. So now we're going to come to the title, curriculum. Many of you guys asked, what is a curriculum? It's very easy. When you're looking for a job, the CV is very necessary so that you can present yourself. You need a CV to show who you are. In Latin, it's curriculum vitae, or CV for short. A curriculum is a way of presenting yourself so that you can speak of what you're good at. And it can have different forms that are more or less original. Some try imitating Amazon or McDonald's, and some even present themselves as a criminal. I've seen very interesting curriculums. To me, they're interesting. I travel a lot, and you can observe this in Singapore. I can say I didn't need the curriculum from this architect. All I can do is say that I know that he knows what he's doing. Even if he's actually in a garden house somewhere being inspired. So you can see that there is a similarity to when you take cards and you put them together and build a little stack, a little building out of it. There's 2,500 rooms here. There's a congress room as well. So for example, when the architect of this building, when he got the concept, he could say, this is my curriculum. And if he introduced him that way, I'd say, well, I'll hire you on the spot to make an extension to my house. You see, this is impressive. Somebody who can make something like this understands something, or even a lot. So a curriculum shows us what a person is able to do. And it also shows us that something like this didn't just happen by chance. Nobody would believe it, would they? It's exactly the same here. If you look at this mountain, if I told you, I looked at the different winds and storms and the erosion created by them, I studied it, and I'm telling you, 44,233 years created this. It came by chance. No, you wouldn't believe me. It's a curriculum. Somebody worked on this. It was 400 people working with one particular architect. And when you see, you instantly know that this did not come by chance. A helicopter? Of course not. These four heads of four presidents in the US? Of course not. So if you look around, and this is the case for nature, it is obvious that a lot of intelligence and power was used to make the extremely small and the incredibly large of the cosmos, to not only design it, but also to create it. When you see something like the four heads of the presidents, you think, wow, that was very well made. And if you look at nature, is there also a aha reaction? That's what we had before, right, with the spiders. And there are many other examples. But despite this, not all people will recognize it. In France, we have someone called Victor Hugo. Even in Switzerland, you heard of him. Even in the German-speaking area. And he said one time, it is a sad thing to imagine that the nature is speaking to people and people are not willing to hear. Nature is speaking and people are not hearing. Nature is speaking. When we look at nature's of examples in nature, we are fascinated. It is made so well and so beautifully. The next level is to hear it. And I have to say, the Bible also says that nature speaks. It's not just observations of nature. The Bible tells us and encourages us to study, to do science, to look around and observe. And you will learn. You will be taught something. All of creation. It says here in Job 12:7-9. But now ask the beasts, and they will teach you, and the birds of the air, and they will tell you, or speak to the earth, and it will teach you, and the fish of the sea will explain to you. Who among all these does know that the hand of the Lord has done this? We can see the invisible God in his almighty power through nature. When we look at nature, when we read nature, there's an aha. For people, it's impossible. We try to study and explain nature, but it's not possible. We can only do it to a certain degree. We don't know everything. Bible says, look around. And for me, it's very clear that God has given us his CV. God gave us his CV in nature. And what we can observe is we can look at scientific experiments and we can do them. We can observe that, the results. But we then have to conclude the correct things from it. God gave us his CV. So that we can have the goal to discover the Lord, just like we read, right? And then to also tell others how creation points to a creator. And when we read this CV, we will learn about an extraordinary creator, and we will get to know him better. When we read the CV, we will see that God never did a study of any type of program like C++, Java, or something similar, but he is an absolute expert in programming. We will speak more about this tomorrow. When we read the CV, we will discover him as an architect, an aeronautical engineer, an outstanding biologist, a Nobel Prize laureate in physics, medicine, chemistry, a main expert in nanotechnologies. There are thousands of reasons to praise him and to know him better. God, the Creator, he encourages us to read, not only to read his CV, the book of nature, but also his word, the Bible, to read it, to study it, to go deeper, to go further. And so what we are now discovering through the Bible is that God is a lot more than a Nobel Peace Prize laureate. And we can discover this through the person of Jesus Christ. The Bible tells us this very clearly. The book of nature and the book, the word, the written word, a testimony of God. We should study it, and then we'll be able to understand our world way better. And we'll also be able to receive a lot more encouragement. I just want to thank you for your attention. Ay. Thank you very much, André, that you explained a couple of pages of the CV of God to us. It was really, God is an amazing creator. All honor and glory to him. We are at the end of the evening